1, go!
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 121 of an ongoing series where we basically take the camera anywhere we want and we try to find secrets and new discoveries to some of our favorite games. A very quick addendum to the last episode that I did, which was Star Wars Fallen Order. That camera was made by Franz Bohme, and I neglected to give him the proper credit that he deserves for making that camera. Had to get that out there real quick to properly show my love. But for this episode, guys, have you seen Lance McDonald's channel? It's awesome. This guy is blowing up. He's the one that's doing all these PT videos because he's the one who managed to break the code. He's able to crack the game and look inside and see whatever there is to see. It's not an easy feat. It's why you don't see a whole lot of PS4 episodes on this channel. And the whole reason why we're able to give a look at PT today is because Lance is a good dude and he gave me all the footage that we need to make an episode of Boundary Break. So to Lance, thank you so much. Guys, make sure you check out his channel at the end of this video. With that said, let's give you a look at some stuff that's never been seen before to the cryptic and puzzling demo known as PT. So first of all, if you've never played PT before, which is entirely likely at this point because you're not allowed to download it anymore, the majority of the game you're going through a looping hallway. A lot of questions get answered when you just simply take the camera outside of that hallway. Is there anything outside the windows? What happens exactly when the character goes through that door? Is there more to the house that we're not seeing? Well, let's answer a lot of those right now with a simple overhead view. Although the game is very dark, I'm going to zoom the camera in real close and you can get a frame of reference to what is going on with this map. This hallway, now that you see it way up close, should look pretty familiar. This is essentially the start right here, and on the opposite side is the end. And since you notice that there isn't a connection between the two, the obvious conclusion is that the character is being teleported once he goes through that door. But the obvious conclusion is not the correct one. What's happening here is that the other hallway is called out. There are technically two hallways that are loaded at any given time. In fact, getting the player in just the right position will load both the hallways. I'm going to highlight two areas that are identical to each other, proving that both the hallways are here. Now, because of the fact that you can see all this geometry in one shot, it's pretty obvious to say that there isn't any more to the house, and there isn't anything really outside of the house. But we can take the camera on the outside of the windows to show you that for some reason there is textures on the outside of the house, giving you a rough idea of what it would feel like to be on the outside of the house, despite the fact that you're never given that perspective when playing the game. Unless, of course, you counted the ending. And this is probably my favorite thing out of the whole episode because it's basically a gag that affects me directly as a guy who steps out of the boundaries in video games. Apparently, the developers decided that if you step out of the boundaries or fall far below the map, Lisa catches you, and Lisa ends you. This is all in an effort to bring you back inside the map, but I gotta admit, it's a very quirky and very terrifying way of going about it. So right near the start of the game, we see a torn up picture of Lisa on the wall. And if we try to leave through the lobby, the door is locked. So if we turn around, a loud banging is heard in the bathroom. And if you were to continue on, you would see that there was a picture frame that fell onto the ground. So that leaves us with a couple questions. One, can we see someone banging on the other side of the door? And two, what exactly is happening in that area where the picture frame fell when that happens? Well, how about we start with the picture frame? So what happens here is that the second that this scene is triggered, there is no animation for the picture frame to fall off the wall. Instead, the picture frame has a set position for when this happens. And so what you're seeing here is the picture frame being teleported to the position that the developers intended. Not terribly exciting, but at least it leaves the mystery solved. So moving on to the bathroom, you take the camera behind the door and there is nobody on the other side. Now, if you're on the other end of your computer right now with your cheeks puffed out and saying to yourself, well, obviously, I'll have you know there's been lots of episodes on Boundary Break where there's plenty of characters that have animations going on that you would never be able to see, like for example, the Untitled Goose Game episode. Taking the camera behind a locked door in a game with a fixed camera position can show you that these character models are in fact banging on the door. It's just that here in PT, that's not the case. But there is something kind of interesting going on here. Rather than make the door just vibrate with someone knocking on the other side, There's two doors here. One is the in-game door that you're supposed to be able to open yourself at one point, and another one is added into the scene as a prop door, the one that you see banging. It must have been easier on the developers to just add another door with a separate function than to add two functions to one door, I'm assuming. Early in the game, we get a glimpse of Lisa standing in the hallway, but she disappears when we get a little bit too close. It's kind of disappointing, but during the scene, we can manipulate the camera and give you a much better look at Lisa. Now that she isn't jittering around or shaking you about, or disappearing immediately, or retreating into the shadows, we can stop and admire this person. That's the best I could do. But anyways, shortly after that, a window falls in the main hallway. And taking the camera over here can show you exactly what's happening. So to start, the window that was originally placed inside the window frame is only there for a couple frames. Slowing down the footage can show you definitively that the window is in fact gone, and after which the window is replaced with another window that's supposed to go through this animation cycle. You can even see it kind of shift around, as if someone in a green screen is positioning this window and then throwing it off of somewhere. And then as you know, after that happens, Lisa is standing on the overhead balcony and looking down at you. And what she does after she creeps away is she crosses her legs, exposes her leg, which surprisingly is a lot more leg than you would probably imagine in a long dress like that on a character model. And by coincidence happens to be giving a nice good smirk at the camera. Yeah, that's great. And then she takes a nap. While we're up here, I can also show you what's going on in the overhead balcony. It's a completely unmodeled room, but it does have walls on all sides. Now let's take a look at the endless maze. At a certain point in the game, the entire hallway turns red and it keeps doing an endless loop. And in various pictures and frames on the walls, you can see eyeballs twitching around. It gets kind of trippy. Panning the camera out and looking at it all at once, in this case, shows you something very different from the original hallway. Now it's all one giant map, and you can plainly see how it's all interconnected. But what's really odd is if you take the camera outside of the boundaries and you look over in this direction, you can see a row of eyeballs. And since the eyeballs you see in the game are all active at once, this row of eyeballs seems to be completely unused. Also, while we're in the maze, you might remember there's a certain point when you can look through a peephole and overhear some gruesome scene in the bathroom. Taking a look inside the bathroom, we can see, unfortunately, there's nothing happening there. Or if you're not in the perspective of someone trying to find boundary break discoveries, fortunate, I suppose. And then we come to the game's final loop, where Lisa starts to stalk the player regularly and tries to kill them. By going out of bounds here, she continues to search for the player, but can't reach us. And when the game is completed, we get this iconic cutscene of Norman Reedus in Silent Hill. And you would think that this entire town would be pre-rendered, but surprisingly, that's not the case. So taking the camera outside into Silent Hill while in game, unfortunately messes with the lighting and makes it a lot darker. Doing what I can here with the footage to try to alter it so it's much easier for you to see. But taking the camera way up in the sky like this can give you the scope of how much the developers decided to model this town, despite the fact that it's a very controlled scene and it's incredibly brief. Naturally, considering the fact that it's a demo, all of these buildings are also hollowed out, I wouldn't be surprised that if the main game ever came out, most of these buildings would also still be hollowed out. It would load new areas when you enter the buildings, but there is a lot to check out here that you don't get a great look at when you finally complete the game, such as potted plants, a dumpster, a water tower, fully modeled air conditioners, as well as some of the vehicles, porta potties, and modeled weeds. And while I play out the rest of this footage, I just want to mention a couple of extra things. One, thank you so much to Lance for donating all this footage for the show. He absolutely could have kept all of this to himself, but rather he decided to help out Boundary Break, and we will never forget that. Also, there's going to be an update video on whether or not we can continue weekly episodes. If I'm to give you a spoiler on that video, it's looking pretty grim right now, so if you want to donate to Patreon so that we can keep this weekly, it helps us to continue to bring on editors to keep the pace going on the show, as well as commission toolmakers so that some of your favorite episodes can even be a possibility. So just consider that. Either way, if you need more details, I'm going to be putting out a video on that very soon. And to all the people who have already donated on Patreon, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Huge shout out to Steven Olson and Mana for being the $100 patrons, as well as a new $100 patron, Theron Sniper. Anyways, I'm still going to have another Boundary Break episode out next Friday, guaranteed. And then from there, we'll figure out what to do next. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.